G'day guys, how are you? Okay, this is just a bit of a video about EDC. For those that don't know what EDC is, it means everyday carry, and it's for a particular style of knife, and it's absolutely great for vegans or those looking to go on picnics. I think it's just a vital tool to have. Absolutely fantastic in any safety situation, whether you need to, cut a children's seat belt, you need to break a window to release them from a vehicle, um, you know, just to keep your costs down if you're going on a picnic, just that ability to get the fruit open, and if you're bushwalking and things like that, or camping, like you only have to watch a few of these movies. There's some, not very nice people out there, so it's always good to be prepared. And you know, I've got a fairly good collection now. Where my interest in knives started from was my dad was in the Swedish Army for a time. Then and he was sort of fairly proud that he just didn't like the aspect of guns. He just refused to bear arms, and yeah, but I think he particularly liked knives, and we had a couple, and just one. There was one in particular, sort of hunting Bowie knife, and just had this intricate hunting scene, intricately carved. It was so beautiful, and just throughout share accommodations as a child and things like that, it just got stolen. It's just one of those things. I can remember playing with certain the issue sort of pocket knives that you get and things like that around the side of the house, and my toe was cut, and yeah, that I've still got like a few of them, like it's a lot of sort of multifunctional, like where you've got perhaps two or three knives, a few tools in there, but that's just like what would be considered. Something so small like that would just be considered what's called a gentleman's knife. So just a lot of multifunction. Where my interest started to pick up is when I was watching like YouTube, and I don't know how it came about, but just EDC knife. I think I was looking at camping or looking at tents. What a passion of mine would be is like not necessarily sort of hunting. Like I'd rather see, and like a bit of a change to the culture. We've got this sort of highbrow culture that goes, in search of, wine and, this, that, and the other. Whereas, I'd like to see like festivals held at like a fruit orchard. I can remember going fruit picking in Victoria and Shepparton, and just that experience of being on a fruit farm with all different types of fruit, and just the freshness of an apple that you eat from a tree is something else. And not all fruit's created equal, and I've any sort of opportunity I'd have is I'd like to just go chase down my favorite fruit, like go on a quest and identify the areas in wherever you live, where a particular type of fruit grows, and go visit those orchards, take the tent, go camping, get out under the stars, and yeah, it's just a good little pursuit. I like to combine, my love of swimming with that, and it's particularly good for winter because you get very clear skies in winter, and obviously the local swimming pool's heated, so you can knock out a few laps. You've got a little bit of a compass bearing in relation to chasing a particular type of fruit, and it all stemmed from one of the videos that you've probably seen before. There was a orange tree that I'd brought, and I just realised that if I could commit 20 years, 10 years to this tree, and then it could bear a fruit that I'm not happy with. So I'd rather go find a fruit that I'm happy with, and perhaps take a cutting, or even get a whole tree here, because sometimes they just entirely wipe out, sections of, their trees, just for cost reasons, because sometimes it costs more to, maintain the trees than to get rid of it if they can't sort of can the fruit. So, that's my inspiration for just something else, just to, all the toffers, want to go off to the wine country and things like that. And, I want the next thing to be is like, people head off to the fruit country. Like fruit festivals held where there's actually fruit growing. I don't know, like, anyway, just anything to get you out of the house, and create a little bit of a sense of adventure. And if you've got like perhaps a turbo diesel car where you're getting good fuel economy out of. So these knives can be a little confronting to people. They're not dangerous in any way. This is the first one. I had a friend in Japan, and just through conversation, I think he's bored or whatever, was saying, "Oh yeah, you're interested in knives, yeah, so yeah, that's I've been looking at that too." It's just what a coincidence. We've been sort of friends since school, and he said, "All right, I'll get you a knife." And what he came back with is probably my favourite brand. And when I say favourite brand, the reason for Kershaw being my favourite brand is that it has a consistency in the product. There's a quality there, but it doesn't cost the earth, So a knife like this in Australia is probably going to cost you somewhere about $50-$60. So features of this knife is that it's a flick knife, which is they're now legal in Australia. I think September 2015. It's got a deep carry clip. It's got a 3-inch blade, this one, and it's known as a flip knife. So a flipper is how they're referred to, and this bit here will pull the knife out like that. So depending on the looseness of the knife, you can just do a flip like that, and the knife's out. And then it's a line locker there, so it automatically locks the blade in. And it's very safe when you close them, because I've closed that now, and it can't come down past my thumb until you sort of take your thumb out. So some people just like to flick it out like that, and then just put the line locker back over. So they're a bit threatening to people that see them for the first time, but you're much safer with a knife like this, like putting it into your luggage or your pocket. You're not going to have those dangers. Probably the illicit nature of some knives did attract me, and one would be something like another Kershaw. I forget what they actually call this knife. This is probably one of the most popular. I think it's an SS, Kershaw SS, and the SS stands for stainless steel. A lot of the great knives, I don't believe in paying a few $100s for a knife. You get them out of China, and sometimes that sort of slight imperfection in the build quality adds to a much more usable knife. So this is a semi-automatic, so you can see there that's you can't get these into Australia. You can't bring them in. They're illegal to import, not to own, but legal to import. And you don't want to be carrying one of these around with you. But yeah, the very easy bang, and that's a semi-automatic knife. But once again, when you put them down, there's a bit of a safety issue, I guess, with the knives. And whatever your preference, however you want to deploy the knife, you can have this deep carry clip again, which is good because it gets good conceal. But you can also change the position, so you can have it, tip up in your pocket, tip down, however you have a preference of opening your knives. That brings me on to perhaps some little quirky knives. I'm not a big fan of expensive knives, and in fact my favourite knives are cheap knives. The cheaper the knife, the better, and it's somewhat of a lucky dip. Now you've got to be careful when you buy a knife online, because this one looks very appealing, and look, a knife can grow on you. This is more of like a kid's knife. It's just a thumb open, so you put your thumb on that and just bring it out like that. So it is loosening up. It's made by Browning, which is a gun manufacturer. It's okay, you know, like and a good quality knife is one that you can operate with one hand. You don't, you know, want to be operating with two hands. That's the whole ideal. So, you know, this is really growing on me, not this knife, but sometimes it just gets a little bit sort of stuck, but you know, it's growing on me, and once again, it's aligned like a deep carry pocket clip, and you can probably get that in the fob of your jeans or something like that. Then what's very interesting is I just really like these sort of wooden handle knives. This is a Bocker knife. It's a very small knife, and yeah, absolutely great if, you know, you're just chopping something, or, you know, you're taking the kids out and you need to, you know, do something for them. You know, you can do watermelon, whatever. You know, it just makes life a bit cheaper. And you know, I'm a big advocate of just sort of staying in your fruit and vegetable shop as opposed to going to the grocery store. Once again, just a thumb operated. I don't know if you can see that. Just thumb operated, and once again, this is a bit tight because it's a newer knife, but you can see that's a Bocker. It's a sort of lower end German knife. Higher end knives you're going to pay like anything between perhaps, you know, 200 to 1200 for, so that's a bit ridiculous. I like something like this. This is the same sort of knife as that. It's actually a Chinese rip-off of a knife similar to that, and they actually put the name Bocker on that knife. But what's great about this knife is because it's Chinese, it's got slightly sort of lesser quality in the build and the manufacture of the knife, but you know, it's very easily concealable. It can actually, you know, deploy in your pocket silently. Like it's just that simple, you know, to like it's just, you know, you can imagine your hands in your pocket and, you know, lo and behold. But yeah, and for me, like, the knives are just very therapeutic, and you know, it was interesting, like when you're at the gun and knife show, like, you know, when you see someone pick up a gun, whether they know how to sort of operate that gun, and you know, particularly with knives, you know if someone can, you know, handle themselves with a knife, which is like a particular skill that's perhaps lost, you know, in this day and age for good, bad, or indifferent. This was a beautiful Browning knife, particularly like the wooden inlay. It's a very heavy knife, once again a steel knife, and more of a substantial sized knife. So, you know, can be used if you want to, you know, break glass or, you know, whatever. Once again, it's a semi-automatic, but what it's good, it's also not just got the flipper that you can see on the side there. It's got the little, you know, thumb, so you can either, you know, throw it out like that, or, you know, bring that back down, and then you've just got the like that. So yeah, there are a few options there. Once again, now always look on the internet for some sort of deals. Now, when you go camping, as I mentioned before, the quality of a knife should be that you can open it with one hand. Now, if I was to modify this knife, I could probably get it to the point where it was just a flip knife with a flick of the wrist, but you know, it isn't really one that you can safely open with one hand, and it actually depresses and releases from this button here, so you can see there. And then I also don't like how unsafe it is when it drops back down. So I got this knife at $3.95, and as far as a knife like that goes, you know, it could be a good tool if it was just left in the car. It's always good to have, a couple of knives in the car, just in case. You never know in an accident where you may be, where you need to get out of that car, what seatbelt you need to cut. I've seen some shocking cases where, kids have been locked in the car, and, the boats, they've been towing a boat, it's gone underwater, and, sometimes those kids' clips just don't come out fast enough. So, a few strategically, placed knives are, going to make it all that much better. A knife like this, a lot of the knives you just use to collect, but a knife like this, like, you'd have, quite a lot of enjoyment if you took camping, because, just whittle some stick, just a little bit of bushcraft and things like that. Just actually use it as a tool without having to, worry about, maintaining an edge and, things like that. Now, that sort of brings me up. One of my first knives was like, I had a really big fear of sharks sort of growing up, but I used to do a lot of sort of diving and things like that. And when I say diving, like, I was never qualified. There was a guy that lived near me called Scuba Steve, and I just used to use his equipment. He just tell me what to do, and yeah. So I've done a lot of diving, but yeah, never been qualified or anything like that. It's like probably before your time, but like episodes of Flipper, that dolphin. So yeah, I used to always, you have that on your arm or on your leg, but back in those days, you'd have some groper fish, big lips. But they're absolutely huge. If you research what a groper fish is, but it's a very friendly fish, and they rely on the divers a lot, and they've got what's called a sea urchin, these spiky things, and the fish have a little bit of trouble getting them up. So if you just sort of got them up with the knife, the gropers would come in and feed on them. So it's just I know at some part there's some aspects that are cruel, but it was just sort of great to have, that symbiotic relationship with this huge fish. Like, and it's just sometimes, people sort of criticise zoos and things like that, but sometimes it can be also, important in establishing a youngster's connection, with animals and, the world around them. This brings me to one of the little tips and tricks. Sometimes if you are at a knife show or something like that, it's not a bad idea to buy the one that's actually on demo. Now, a knife like this, if you were to buy it online, is probably going to be fairly expensive. It's not a great knife, it's just stainless steel, but it's just one of these lucky knives. And when I say lucky, like, I think they wanted $30 for this one, and I got it for $20, right? But this is not a semi-automatic, but it flips as easy as a semi-automatic knife would. It also has a thumb. I forget what they're called. So it just opens so easily. You've got, excellent crimping there where you can put your thumb. But, the value of this knife is just in its ease of use. So it's just so loose, and if I practice a bit more, I could probably get the downward in sort of two-hand action. But just to, once again, it's not always that brand new one. This one's probably been opened maybe 200 times, I'd say, and you'll find that a lot of the knives that you get may be a little bit tight when you get them, but they will loosen up. What I want to bring special attention to is my absolute favourite knife, and I'd pay $150 if I had to, but it was $15, and I think it's my most beautiful knife. And I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to knives. I find the flippers, the semi-automatics, they're a little bit aggressive. They're a little bit confronting to the average person. Like, you're just cutting some fruit, and they're like, "What the fuck?" So this is the knife. It's an M-Tech, designed in the USA, obviously made in China. But for me, it's just a beautiful knife. It's I love everything about it. It's so light. It hasn't been like, usually a knife might have another place or, more grip and things like that. Deep carry clip. You've got a, space for a lanyard, but it just opens by the thumb, so, which you can see here. And particularly this knife, it can be opened left and right handed because it's got like a little thumb on each side. Now, my other knife, my other favourite knife, this used to be my favourite of all the knives I had. It was this little Chinese, $17.50 knife, right? And once again, the little cheap knives are my favourite. And if you don't like it, the knife, you get it and it's just rubbish, just, sell it, because they're so cheap. But this knife, it's just like there's no play in the blade, which is rare for a Chinese knife. It's just amazing, absolutely amazing, and it's not offensive at all. Like, absolutely fantastic construction. Like, whoops, how do you do? Like the line locks really well. Just absolutely great. And I guess at first you may, when you get into knives, you probably will cut yourself a few times, but after a while, like, that's not really an issue. And yeah, that's my favourite knife. The cost, the look, and just the ease of use, and it's a little less threatening to people, as opposed to coming out with something like that. It's just a bit, and just the safety of a knife like this. So whether you're buying a child their first knife, you're teaching them a few skills, and you just want to go for a little pocket knife or a little gentleman's knife or something like that as some sort of handy tool when required. Also, like a tip, if you ever struggling to open a jar, what you can do is you just get the knife in and then just give it a bit of a tilt back or a little bit of a twist, and that jar's gonna pop the seal, because it's that sort of vacuum seal, and particularly sometimes temperature can make the knives or the jars a little bit harder to open, even if you're sort of putting it under the hot water, which you don't necessarily want to do. So I guess that's my EDC collection. EDC is everyday carry knives. Not that I carry them every day, but yeah, it's just something to get into. So if we took something from this video, is perhaps I encourage those to get away from the shooting. Those who are watching this and are into their shooting, I would rather see people capture just the greatest photo of that animal. So if just the steam coming out of the animal's nose, or if you spent the money on a camera instead of the scope, or I think there's applications now where you can connect your iPhone or your mobile phone up to the scope and get some very good pictures. I don't see the need to be killing the animals unless look, if you're in a rural situation, you're doing it for food and survival, good luck to you. But just the blatant killing, if they're not a pest or feral species, so when we're looking at people getting out to the country, check out your local swimming pool, check out and find the best orange, find that best fruit, find that best variety you can, and then just identify which fruit shops they go to, even make a request for your fruit shop to get that particular type in. But I don't know how long sort of that wine culture. I think people are becoming more educated. Certainly the generation above us are still enjoying it, and they love all their concerts out there and everything in moderation, including moderation. Chop this video down, shit.